Hey, the essay you're about to engage with is just one part of four. If you haven't started already, if you randomly clicked here through a YouTube rabbit hole, click the introduction. That will explain what's going on and give you a far better basis before we dive into these more deep topics. Now, if you could, and you're here otherwise, you've already listened to the introduction, click the link in the description below, which will take you to my website, which will allow you to listen as well as read along. These topics are not just quick fixes. They require your full body listening. Okay, so that's why I encourage this dual sensory modality, both seeing and hearing simultaneously. After you've watched the essay, please let me know what you thought. Like what clicked and what was confusing. This helps me become a better writer, me be a better teacher, as I try to guide you through some of these more esoteric domains. Thank you for your presence. Enjoy the essay. We'll talk soon. Just be aware of bodily sensations. That's it. That's the Buddha's brilliant insight. Bullshit. Too simple. Very close. It's to be aware of bodily sensations and have equanimity towards them. Awareness alone is not enough. One must both observe and remain impartial to whatever arises in the vibratory field. Simple? Yes. Easy? Not even remotely. And that's for a few obvious reasons. First, unpleasant bodily vibrations are constantly being generated and regenerated by your mind. Second, we lack a strong enough mind-body connection to know exactly where in our body these unpleasant vibrations are actually coming from. Third, the mind tends not to be equanimous towards unpleasant vibrations from unknown sources. For example, let's say, I don't know, the loaded and vivid memory of your beloved high school girlfriend dumping you randomly arises. The thought triggers a lot. Grief, burning rage, numbness, a little bit of nausea. Running in parallel to these sensations are craving, aversion, desire, and suffering. It's all there. It's all uncomfortable. It's all unpleasant. Please, for the love of God, make it stop. Aha, but then you remember the Buddha's claim. If you are fully aware of an unpleasant sensation, then it will cease to be a source of suffering because you no longer have preferences for what happens to it. So all I have to do, you think to yourself, is place my undivided attention on these sensations, the kind of attention that is free from all clinging and fear, and the suffering will supposedly disappear. So you give it a go. First, you try pinpointing exactly where these sensations are occurring down to the millimeter. They can crop up literally anywhere on your body, meaning there's a lot of area to cover. Where do you even begin? In your chest? Eyebrows? Gallbladder? The hypothesis doesn't say. It could take a long while to locate their precise latitudes and longitudes, but for argument's sake, let's say you quickly track them all down. Maybe it's grief towards the center of your left shoulder socket, burning rage within the upper half of your descending colon, numbness in your Adam's apple, and nausea near your 11th thoracic vertebra. You can't focus well on all of the various sensations at once, so instead you choose just one of the pain structural centers, zoom in with your attention, and wait. 1 second passes. And wait. 2 seconds. Nothing happens. Still uncomfortable. 5 seconds. 10 seconds. The suffering doesn't seem to have stopped. How long should it take? A minute? An hour? The hypothesis doesn't say. It only claims that it will disappear the moment you are fully mindful of the sensation. What was she wearing that day? Oops, the thought comes out of nowhere and is just interesting enough to capture your attention. Good question. I think it was that navy blue V-neck shirt she always used to wear. You respond to no one in particular. And was she wearing jeans? It asks back. Interesting. Another good question. Honestly, I just don't remember. If you aren't careful, like a full-blown schizophrenic, you will continue this psychotic narrative with yourself all the way back down into the inferno. Oh God, her outfits were so cute. Oh, I loved her so much. I would have done anything for her. Fuck, I can't believe she cheated on me with that ROTC guy. How could she? And then I forgave her. I had no self-respect. God, I was so desperate for love and handjobs. And then she dumped me? Me? In front of so many people. Humiliating. Why didn't I just have the balls to dump her first? And then I cried like a fucking pussy. Fuck her. Fuck me. Jesus, this hurts. Wow, this hurts so bad. Wow, this hurts really bad. At this point, the trickery of the mind has caused you to totally abandon the experiment by unconsciously lassoing you back into craving and aversion. It's done so through a series of perfectly compelling thoughts which play off of your unique emotional vulnerabilities. These trains of thoughts happen in a fraction of a second, so quickly and habitually that they often don't even register as being vibratory, as if the thoughts were written by and belong to you instead of just being witnessed by you, as if any thought actually mattered in the grand scheme of things. This is a real issue because, again, left to its own devices, the mind will repeatedly convince itself that presence isn't the answer, that unhappiness can only be solved through more gratification, complaining, and fantasizing. And that's hypothesis number 9. The ego will persuade itself to ditch the experiment over and over and over. Yes, okay, here we go. Aware being aware. This is really it. Yup. I'm really doing it. Super present. Okay. Well, I'm not feeling any happier. Oh God, this is so boring. Maybe this whole awareness thing just doesn't work for me. Oh, maybe what I need is a scone. Boom, just like that. Sensations triggered and the cycle of suffering takes its first revolution. Put differently, we very easily think we're observing sensations when all we're really doing is, well, thinking. Given all of this, rather than the suffering being reduced, as was gloriously on offer, it's multiplied. More unfortunate still is the fact that the mind somehow ends up blaming awareness as misery's instigator rather than the thoughts themselves, which are the true culprit. Although simple on the surface, the Buddha's hypothesis turns out to be extremely difficult to run properly for other reasons too. Not only is maintaining unwavering focus on sensations nearly impossible, but the experiment also asks that we not expect any kind of extrinsic reward for successfully doing so. Why is that such a problem? Imagine it like this. A group of researchers tells you to, quote, stack 10 plates on top of your head and then walk a mile without spilling any of them. Why, you ask? Well, because based on the joyous testimonials from a few successful participants from the past, your reward upon completion might make you feel as though you lived on Mars. The whole thing may as well have been devised by a bunch of conspiratorial hippie lunatics. Your reward might feel as though you lived on Mars? What the hell does that even mean? What does living on Mars even feel like? And how long might the feeling last? And why can't they guarantee that it'll happen? And why exactly 10 plates and not 11? How many times would you allow yourself to attempt and fail the experiment? 1 time, 5, 20, 100? At what point would the unpleasant feelings of frustration override the abstract and hypothetical reward? Now imagine being asked to run that same experiment, stack 10 plates on your head and walk a mile with the same vague prize, living on Mars, only now you have a broken neck and flies persistently buzzing and tickling the inside of your ears. How many tries would you give it then? This is analogous to what beginning meditators experience when first running the Buddhist hypothesis, only the stakes are way higher, the challenge far greater, and the reward substantially more nebulous. That is, instead of a broken neck, you have constant and severe body aches from sitting for hours in a row. Instead of buzzing flies, you have an unleashed, distraught, and lusting mind. Instead of a fun thought experiment, you risk wasting half of your life sitting in lotus position. And all of this, as a reminder, only in hopes of maybe experiencing an unbounded state that has no reference point to anything we would normally consider as peaceful or happy. One that's apparently unconditionally free from all suffering, whatever that means. How many times would you be willing to run something like this? What if you were told that it would take millions of attempts? Nevertheless, whether you trust the anecdotal evidence of past seekers and yogis or not, their claim lives on full display for all those curious, brave, and perhaps desperate enough to test it. Be aware of any sensation without attachment or distraction, and it will cease to generate suffering and begin generating unconditional peace. Have as many attempts as you like. It's possible that you sort of follow the logic but are still majorly confused, that you find the reasoning to be sound in a roundabout and unhelpful way. A cascade of thoughts may be bubbling up to the surface, the frustrated mind trying to make sense of the argument here. If that's you, this is the perfect time to stress test all of the claims and hypotheses from this essay. They're a little out of order, but still try running them in your own brain. Hypothesis 1. Suffering is identification with desire and is caused by the attachment to the idea that reality should be different from how it actually is. Even if it's slight, is this essay dissatisfying to you in some way? If so, this is a subtle form of suffering. What were you hoping for instead? What was your subconscious expectation or desire upon finishing it? Maybe it was a desire for it to be less confusing, or that it be more actionable, or that it had slightly more scientific rigor. Maybe the desire was for something else entirely. Whatever it is this desire generating any kind of negativity in you? Hypothesis 2. Every desire includes both craving and aversion. Maybe desiring less confusion is really a craving for coherent worldviews and an aversion for dissonant ones. Maybe more actionable is really a craving for greater control over the future and an aversion towards chaos. Maybe scientific rigor is actually a code name for more references to neuroscience and an aversion towards using capital letters for things like the unknown, awareness, and presence. Peel back the explanatory layers of your mental preferences until you reach their core. What do you really want here? Hypothesis 4. You don't really want X or Y. You want the sensations you think will arise from having or not having X or Y. You don't really desire coherent worldviews, control over the future, or references to neuroscience. You desire the sensations you assume will arise as a result of having coherent worldviews, control over the future, and references to neuroscience. Consider this. If you felt exactly how you wanted to feel right now, would there be any desire left? Hypothesis 5. You have no idea why you want the things you want or don't want the things you don't want, which is to say that you have no real clue why you crave some of these realities while recoiling from the others. However far down in your mind you have to go, follow your explanatory rabbit hole to its conclusion and then take one more step into the abyss. Discover that your desire exists in perfect mystery. Hypothesis 3. All thoughts eventually manifest as physical sensations on the body. Maybe the thought of dissonant worldviews creates agitation in the collarbones. Maybe the concept of controlling the future brings warmth to the perineum. Maybe the mental image of capital U unknown causes eyebrows to furrow. Where do you feel the positivity or negativity? It's there. All it takes is a little time and patience to find it. Pause this and tune in. Hypothesis 9. The ego mind will persuade itself to ditch the experiment over and over. How many seconds did it take before you gave up on that last hypothesis and experiment and came back to the page? Hypothesis 6. Sensations have some sort of frequency, amplitude, and direction to them. That is, they're always changing. After locating where the physical negativity exists on your body, determine what that particular sensation is like subjectively. How quickly or slowly is it vibrating? How powerful or subtle is its amplitude? Which direction is it moving in? Hypothesis 7. That which is aware of vibration is not vibrating. That which is aware of suffering does not suffer. That which is aware of yourself is not yourself. Are you the frequencies and amplitudes? Or are you aware of the frequencies and amplitudes? Are you the changes? Or are you aware of the changes? You can't be both. It's always the latter. Hypothesis 8. The moment suffering falls away through awareness, unconditional peace will bob up to the surface, occasionally followed by feelings of unconditional love and joy. Is there a beginning or an end to vibration? Is there space accompanying thought and sensation? Is there something else to do? This is who you really are. Timeless and deathless. Everything and nothing. Beyond gain and loss. No fear. Pure love. We're educated to believe that peace is earned through action instead of it being a birthright. That joy is a reward only distributed at the end of a journey instead of it being used as stepping stones along the way. That love happens only after we deserve it instead of the other way around. That problems are to be eradicated through brute strength, cunning, and willpower. Either you work harder or you think smarter. What this is suggesting is the exact opposite. No one can fully think their way out of suffering or into unconditional happiness because thinking generates sensation, and sensational desire is the base layer of misery. The end of suffering, then, turns out not to be an intellectual pursuit at all. It's a practical one. It must be attempted. The experiment must be run again and again and again and again. And what are those steps in order? First, observe a thought for what it truly is, transitory vibration. Second, pinpoint the sensations the thought created in the body. Third, be aware of and equanimous with the sensations. No craving and no aversion. Don't wish it away and don't wish something else takes its place. And then what happens to it? Step 4, as soon as a new thought arises, start again. Step 5, as soon as a thought about a thought arises, see step 4. Repeat ad nauseum, over and over until the experiment becomes unbearable. Over and over until the heat of frustration incinerates the ego. Over and over until you consciously decide to say, screw it, drop the plates from your head and find your own path to Mars. Over and over until you finally realize that you're already here, that you never actually left. Anicca, anicca, anicca. You are free. You are free. You are free.